question is, am I learning? Am I learning in the context of trying to be able to do good for people? So again, very practical question. I had another one in law school when I was nearing graduation, and as I had seen a lot of my classmates and students in the year before me start doing legal jobs, and there were people like me who said they wanted to do good in the world. I saw them getting sucked in by the temptation of money and power and fame, and I wanted to find a way to remind myself that I got into this for my reason, and it had to stay right in front of my face.
Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that shaped how they see life, offering you daily wisdom to reflect on your own journey. Today's guest is Greg Vigdor, a man who spent over 4 decades working within America's healthcare system, always searching for ways to heal what's broken. He's channeled his passion for change into storytelling, writing medical thrillers that weave important truths into page-turning adventures. Let's step into Greg's world for a few minutes and hear the quotes that has guided him through years of fighting for something better.
My name's Greg Vigdor, and my quote, I call it the Theory of Irv. It's live your life with purpose for others. And what I mean by that, it's not enough to just experience the world. One must try to do good in the world.
Oh, live your life with purpose for others. Oh, lead your life with purpose. I want us to dissect that quote and break it and put it together so that we can really understand what it means. Before we even do that, how long have you known this quote?
Well, the Theory of Irv is the title of a book that I wrote about 5 years ago when I left my longtime career as a healthcare executive and became an author. But the theory itself is actually something I've lived. The stories are all fictional, but I tried to have my characters face personal challenges in their lives. And so since the one I was most familiar with my own challenges, that's how I came to this question of what does my main character do with his life as he tries to give it bigger meaning, especially as he has a near-death experience and he really faces that question. So it's been operative for 30, 40 years for me as I try to live, figure out what I would do with my life.
Yeah, live your life with purpose. So now I want you to explain the quote, but with references to examples of scenarios in your life over the past 30 years where you've actually led with purpose, how you actually lived your life with purpose. If does the question make sense?
Yes, it does. I'll just start with the character in my book and then sort of go to my personal experience. But
yeah, please
his was out in Canyonlands National Park in the middle of the West in America. And again, facing death because they're isolated. They lost all their supplies. And he's been struggling with what he should do with his life, as has his friend. And at that moment, they finally come to some understanding of what it should be, which is that they should stop just going off having these adventures and start doing something that has a greater purpose to it, something that would have some meaning in terms of more than just indulgence and self-aggrandizement. But the other part of it was really just as important. It's not just that there be a purpose, that it's about doing good for others, to give your life meaning in elevating other people and their lives. That's essentially what I was facing when I was a young man. It's a long time ago. I'm 70 now, like 50 years ago. So as I had a number of opportunities to do different things, I was trying to figure out what do I want to do. And I was having a wonderful time having adventures, but I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. And that's kind of how I had my revelation, not with a near-death experience, but realizing that what gave me happiness and satisfaction was doing a career not to make money, not to sort of have power, but to feel like I was contributing to society in a good way. And so I found ways to try to live that life. And it's not necessarily the choices that you're naturally presented. So it's not easy. So an example for me, just to make it practical, since your show is Practical Wisdom, for me, one of the things I did in order to get the credentials to be able to go off and do more good was I went to law school. I was fortunate enough to get in, but I quickly realized that a lot of law school is very self-indulgent. So, and I wanted to learn the law. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I just wanted to learn it so I could apply it to doing good things. And one of the things I did in my first year, which I think is very different than any other law student I've ever heard of, was I never looked at my grades from the first year. I thought that buying into the competition for grades was sort of missing my point. And so I said to myself that if I somehow flunk out, I'm pretty sure they'll tell me. But other than that, I don't really care what my grades are. The question is, am I learning? Am I learning in the context of trying to be able to do good for people? So again, very practical question. I had another one in law school when I was nearing graduation, and as I had seen a lot of my classmates and students in the year before me start doing legal jobs, and there were people like me who said they wanted to do good in the world. I saw them getting sucked in by the temptation of money and power and fame, and I wanted to find a way to remind myself that I got into this for my reason, and it had to stay right in front of my face. So I committed to myself to stop eating meat. I became a vegetarian the day I graduated from law school, as something that I thought every day I would remember why it was that I stopped eating meat. And again, they're just cues that help send one on the right path. Had a long career after that doing lots of amazing things, and I had lots of temptations to go make more money, go do other things, choose the easier path. And time again, what I went back to was this basic, fundamental premise of mine that I'm in this, and all the good fortune that I've had is because I'm trying to live my life with purpose to make other people's lives better. Now that I'm 70, I feel like I've done a decent enough job. Writing books is my next avenue to trying to do even more of that.
Yeah. You mentioned this quote you shared with us. You call it the Theory of Irv. Tell me a little bit about this character.
It's the title of my book, The Theory of Irv, and the theory is what they discover in the middle of the desert, having their near-death experience. But the Irv reference is my main character is Irv Tinsley.
I need to understand something. Is the name of the book The Theory of Irv? Because right now
Yes.
I'm kind of like, okay, that's the name of the book.
Yes, and it's also my statement. It's my quote. It's what my living creed. Whatever you want to describe it as.
Okay.
And
because when you said the Theory of Irv, I was thinking, it was you just mentioned, the Theory of Irv, the character from the book. So I needed to be sure that, okay, the name of the book is the Theory of Irv. Just for those that are wondering, I want to go check out the book.
Okay. Yes. And it's named that because two things. One is that the main character in my book is a gentleman by the name of Irv Tinsley. And so that's why it's the Theory of Irv. It's Irv's theory. But it's also a recognition to my grandfather, whose name was Irving. And so I thought, well, it's not a common name, so I think I'll use that and give him a little credit to all this too.
Yeah. Well, what's the word now? When was the book published?
I published the first book in my series it was 5 years ago, and I published 2 more since, and I'm writing the 4th. It's all part of the same series. They're medical thrillers with a lot of how do you make healthcare policy better in the United States.
Yeah, I know earlier on we talked about practical and we talked about real life, and you shared some of your stories from your life. I want us to do something interesting. I want you to go into fiction and share some of the stories of some of the stories of Irv. How do you pronounce it? Irv, right? That illustrates him living a life of purpose in the book. You understand, right?
Sure. Some of the fictional stories I'm using to make my point. Right. So Irv gets into healthcare at a very young age because his mother dies of cancer when he's a teenager, and that's when he's lost, and he ends up finding some friends as he goes to college, and he just learns to have a good time and having adventures all around the United States, and it's all going great until he and his friends all graduate, and suddenly he has to get a job. And his friends get a job, and it's no longer the same. And he's starting to get very bored with his existence and wondering, is this all there is? And what do I do next? That was sort of his state of mind. And when he went off with his friend to the desert to try to figure out what he should do. So that's when he had the revelation that I need to find a way to do good. He decides to get a degree in hospital administration so he could go work in hospitals to help people heal and make sure they're running in a way that really supports people's lives. And he becomes an expert in that. And he becomes critical. That's how the medical detective stories, where he's the primary detective who's going out solving these cases. Yeah, not so he can get rich, not so he can have power, not so he can say, look what I did, because he fundamentally just wants to make the world a better place so people don't die unnecessarily like his mother did. That's living life with.
Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
Purpose for others.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that story. Um, I want us to just, to go back to the quote again. I always like revisiting it again and again and again. Live your life with purpose for others, right? Live your life with purpose for others. And one of the core things from what you said so far is always questioning and asking ourselves when it's time to make choices and take major steps. Like, what should I do? Why should I do this, right? So that we ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Is it because I want to make money? Is it because I want to help the next person? Why am I doing this? And that would help us actually make decisions that is in alliance with the goal. When you say for the betterment of others, what does that mean, right? Can you like expand on what it means for making decisions for the betterment of others?
Yeah, I think it's an internal evaluation, but it has to be an honest assessment, something that a person believes honestly in their heart and their soul is something that's good for the people that they see around them and the greater world. That if you can't honestly answer the question and say, if I do this, other people's lives are going to be better, you're not fulfilling what I believe is my credo. But it's not like everybody even has the clear choice, and we all have temptations around us, and none of these are easy choices or even clear at times. So you have to be aware of temptation. You have to be aware of your own thinking that tries to suck you into the things that where you don't want to go. But I believe if you dig deep enough, if you really reflect on it, you'll come to the clear sense of what your choices are, and then you can follow one path or the other, but ultimately the choice is yours.
Yeah, something I would like to point attention to is like kind of like a disclaimer, right? For those that are listening right now, most persons, what you are saying, what the quote is saying, what I understand the quote to be saying is that live your life in service of humanity, right? Now,
Sure.
it doesn't mean that you should live your life, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't mean you should live your life wondering or thinking what other people will say.
Say that one more time.
That live your life, the quotes, live your life with purpose is in service of humanity, right? Kind of like the betterment of others, in service of humanity. That it doesn't mean, it's not the same as living your life wondering, thinking, what will people say? What will my neighbor say about this thing I'm doing? What will my neighbor say about this? What will my auntie say about this? No, it's about asking, the decision I'm making, is it serving humanity? Not what would people say about what I'm
Absolutely.
doing.
You're exactly correct. That's why it's honest self-assessment. And in fact, if people are saying too much about it, then you're probably going down the wrong path, because it's about you and how people see you rather than the good you're providing. It's sort of a lot of this is, how do you sort of calm down your ego and find the goodness that you want to contribute? And yeah, it's not for everybody, but I think the world would be a better place if there are more folks doing this than some of what I certainly see out in the world.
Yeah, because one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of persons, they do things that they don't want to do because they are obsessed over the opinion of others. And I just wanted to quickly point that out, that this is not what we are talking about.
Right. Good catch.
Yeah. Lead your life with service. So live your life with purpose. With purpose. Wait, let me even look at the quote again, because I've mixed everything up. Everything's just jumbled up in my head. Live a life of purpose for others. Now, how did you say it? What you wrote here is kind of, it's not as sweet as what you said.
Live your life with purpose and for others is really the phrase I use. I said my slightly longer version is, it's not enough to just experience the world in your life. One must try to do good in the world.
Yeah, it's not enough to just live your life. One must also try to do good in the world. And earlier on, I was asking, what does service to humanity, what does betterment of society means or looks like? And you said it has to be an honest evaluation. We have to look at it. But then sometimes we might not everybody has the tools to really know, okay, if this or this is not. Sometimes people genuinely, honestly, they do things that, that hurts the society, that hurts mankind. No, they're not aware. They're ignorant.
Right.
Is there are there some examples of things that that are betterments of society?
Yeah, so it is true. There's a lot of people don't necessarily have the opportunity to make these decisions, but a lot of people just don't believe they have the ability to make the decisions when they do. Many people
Yeah.
will actually be told, I was told through much of my career that what I was saying I wanted to do couldn't be done and that I was wrong and I should do something else. And a few times I was tempted to say, well, maybe they're right and I should go in a different path. Maybe I should, when I was working in the policy world and with government, that I should accept a compromise that would take some provision that I was working that would help a lot of people and sort of tame it down so it would help some people, but not a lot. And at some point I'd say, well, no, I think it's so important that I'm going to try to make sure it helps more people. And if
More people.
somehow I fail in the endeavor, then I'm willing to take that chance that might be the end of my career, for example. So again, that's why it's all about self and trying to understand what you're living through and the times, and essentially, but really clearly being honest with yourself about it. It's not a spectator sport. It's really a personal statement about how you try to live a life to give it, again, a greater sense of happiness and satisfaction.
Yeah, I want to point something out. You know that someone can be honest and still be telling the lie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because
there's even a phrase that's called cognitive dissonance. where you convince yourself that everything works, but it really doesn't.
Yeah, because what I'm saying is that sometimes I might, for example, if I could tell you, right, I'm calling from Nigeria right now. I could tell you that, oh, I'm calling from what's the country that's in Africa. Let's say I'm calling from Kenya or something like that. Yeah, East Africa, Kenya. And guess what? After the conversation, you would leave and you say, where did that guy come from? I'm like, yeah, Kenya. But what did you just say? You just lied. But what you are honestly telling them is what you believe to be the truth. At the end of the day, it's still a lie.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's why I was like hitting kind of like core on actually the basis of what it looks like. But most persons, the idea of what it means to service of humanity, for some reason, is not exactly. It's not it. And they will really have a problem if they try to do good for humanity, because what they end up doing is the opposite.
Yes. There's been an awful lot of really bad things done in the name of good for humanity.
Yeah. Because I've watched some what do you call it now, from some obsessive. I think a movie I watched recently. The guy was like, "Oh, the Earth is dying. If the Earth dies, the whole human race will die." And I know it's a crazy movie. It's fiction though, but it was like, let's cut off, let's reduce the population of the Earth by by some biological weapon or stuff like that. And he believed that it was a vision, it was a mission, that something that was bigger than himself. He was willing to die for it. And at that point in time, when you just look at that person, he believes, right, that what he's doing is helping humanity, but he has lost it.
This is a problem for me, especially in my writing, because a lot of what I'm trying to do now is communicate principles like this in my books. And my heroes, it's one thing to communicate that, but the truth is a lot of my villain, they're actually trying to achieve the same thing in their mind.
Yeah.
But how they're going about it is all wrong.
Yeah.
So they're exactly what you're describing. And to be a good writer, you actually have to try to create characters that are like that make it more complicated than the simple, it's good or it's bad. It's sort of, these are very personal things that readers look at differently. And so again, I've been trying to figure out how to sort of make my message more muddled by having characters that are more real in terms of how people have to make their decisions and what their motivations are versus what it is they're really doing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Greg, for sharing your favorite quotes and making it make sense for me. Tell me just quickly, because we have about 1 minute left. Just quickly tell me about the book, the name of the book, and where people can learn more about you.
Well, the best way to check out my books is on my author website, which is gregvigdor.com, GREGVIGDOR.com. And my books are up there, and there's also a free story available for download if people want to check out my writing.
Okay. Once again, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm glad that
we
had this conversation. My head is just flowing with more wisdom. You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.